Imagine being stranded alone in one of the most desolate, frozen corners of the earth. No help, no food, no way out. This is the true story of Ada Blackjack, a young Inuit woman who endured 2 years on Wrangel Island, facing the brutal Arctic wilderness with nothing but her wits and sheer determination. Her story is a testament to human strength, resilience, and the power of survival. Before we jump into the heart of Ada's incredible survival, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more heart-stopping survival tales. Could you survive what Ada did? Let us know in the comments below. Chapter 1. A risk that could change everything. In 1921, Ada Blackjack was a 23-year-old Inuit woman living in Nome, Alaska. Life was tough. Ada was a single mother caring for her sick son, Bennett, who needed urgent medical attention. With no money for treatment and the cold winter closing in, she was desperate. The local doctor's advice was clear. Bennett needed help, and fast. But Ada had no way of affording the expensive treatment he required. That's when a strange opportunity came into her life. Ada heard about an expedition to Wrangel Island, a remote Arctic outpost. The expedition, led by the infamous explorer Vilhjalmur Stefansson, promised high pay. The team needed someone to cook, sew, and maintain supplies for the explorers. While Ada had no experience with survival in the harsh Arctic environment, the promise of money was too good to ignore. She could use it to help save her son. Despite having no idea what she was truly getting into, Ada agreed to join the team. She wasn't a trained explorer or a survivalist, but she was tough and resourceful. This would be her chance to change her life and secure a future for her son. In September of 1921, Ada boarded the ship bound for Wrangel Island, accompanied by 4 men and a small cat named Victoria. As they sailed away from the safety of Nome, Ada's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and dread. The vast expanse of icy water stretched before her, an unforgiving world of snow and cold. She had no idea just how far this journey would take her. Chapter 2. The Bitter Cold of Wrangel Island. When the expedition finally arrived at Wrangel Island, it didn't take long for the team to realize that things were much worse than they had anticipated. The island, far from being a paradise, was an inhospitable land covered in snow and ice, constantly buffeted by harsh winds. The team expected to find abundant wildlife, but what they found instead was a barren, frozen wasteland. Hunting became their greatest challenge. The seals were harder to find than expected, and the island offered few resources. Food was scarce, and the harsh Arctic winter set in quickly, making survival even more difficult. Rations dwindled faster than anticipated, and soon the explorers began to weaken. The once optimistic atmosphere quickly turned to desperation. Ada's job of cooking and maintaining the camp seemed like a distant memory as the crew struggled to stay alive in the unforgiving cold. By the start of 1923, the situation had become dire. The men were sick, hungry, and suffering from scurvy. There was no sign of Stefansson or the promised supplies. The decision was made. 3 of the men, Alan Crawford, Fred Maurer, and Milton Gall, would leave to seek help. They believed they could make it to the mainland and return with much-needed provisions. The others, including Ada, stayed behind, believing it was the only option. But the men never returned. Chapter 3. Alone in the Arctic. With the men gone, Ada was left on Wrangel Island with Lorne Knight, who was also sick from scurvy. The 2 of them were now entirely alone. Ada continued to care for Knight, cooking what little food they had left and trying to keep him warm, but his condition worsened. He could hardly move, let alone help Ada with the struggle for survival. As the weeks passed, Knight's health deteriorated, and Ada's already desperate situation became even more grim. She did everything she could to comfort him, but it wasn't enough. In the end, Knight succumbed to his illness. Now, Ada was truly alone in the heart of the Arctic, surrounded by the freezing winds and snow. Ada buried Knight in the frozen earth, marking his grave with a small cross. The silence of the island was deafening. Her only companion was the cat, Victoria. Ada knew that survival now depended entirely on her. She was alone in a hostile, frozen world where every day was a battle to stay alive. Chapter 4. Fighting for Survival. Ada had no choice but to keep fighting. In the face of overwhelming odds, she became a woman of incredible resourcefulness. She had no formal training in survival, but her instinct to protect herself and stay alive pushed her to adapt quickly. She began hunting the few animals she could find on the island. foxes, birds, and even rodents, setting traps and snares to catch them. Food was scarce, but Ada had learned how to make do with whatever she could find. She rationed the remaining supplies, always calculating how long each meal would last. She grew used to the biting cold and the loneliness, forcing herself to stay strong despite the overwhelming sense of isolation. She began to see the land with new eyes, learning the rhythms of the Arctic and finding small ways to protect herself. She fixed her shelter, reinforced the cabin against the wind, and even crafted clothes from the fur of the animals she caught. Despite her resourcefulness, survival was never certain. The island was constantly plagued by polar bears, which would roam near her shelter looking for food. Ada had to stay vigilant, setting up makeshift traps and using every tool at her disposal to keep them away. The long, dark nights were especially terrifying, but she refused to let fear take over. Ada's will to survive grew stronger with each passing day. Her only solace came from Victoria, the cat, who provided her with a small comfort in an otherwise desolate place. The cat was her only companion, her only connection to the outside world. Chapter 5. A Flicker of Hope. For nearly 2 years, Ada survived in complete isolation. Days turned into months, and months turned into years. She kept a journal, chronicling her struggles, the brutal conditions, and her undying hope of being rescued. Ada never gave up on the belief that someone, someday, would come for her. And then, in August 1923, her prayers were finally answered. A rescue team from the Soviet Union arrived on the island. When they found Ada, they were shocked by her survival. She was weak and frail, but she was alive, against all odds. The rescue team couldn't believe that a woman had survived alone for so long in one of the harshest places on Earth. Ada had defied the odds, outlasting the men who had left her behind. They were amazed by her strength and resourcefulness. Chapter 6. The Forgotten Hero. Ada was brought back to civilization, but her story didn't garner the recognition it deserved. The men who had organized the expedition received most of the credit, while Ada's incredible survival remained largely ignored. She quietly returned to Nome, where she used the money she had earned to care for her son, Bennett. Despite surviving 2 years in the Arctic, Ada didn't seek fame or glory. She had done what she needed to do to save her child. However, as the years passed, Ada's story was slowly rediscovered. Today, she is recognized as one of the greatest survivalists of all time, a woman who survived against all odds in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Ada Blackjack wasn't an explorer or a trained survivalist. She was a mother, a woman who found the strength to survive when everything seemed lost. Her legacy is a reminder of what the human spirit is capable of when faced with insurmountable odds. Would you have had the strength to survive what Ada did? Could you have thrived in the freezing wilderness with nothing but your wits and willpower? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible survival stories.